All right. Hi. Good morning, Evan. Welcome back to Truehope Cast. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. We've got a couple of very interesting topics that we're going to go over. But how are you? What's going well?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm very well. Just been busy with work, which is great. It seems like kind of the way the world's going, more and more people are leaning towards the more natural health approach, which is really important. So that's good to see that. So we've just been working and very busy. So good. And I'm going to be happy to be back.
That's interesting. So, as like the last couple of years has unfolded, have you seen kind of like more people lean towards a more natural way of either dealing with an issue or using natural means to stop
One,
themselves getting sick?
100%. There's been a huge increase in that, which is good. It's a blessing. And it's nice. A lot of the people that I've noticed who have been hesitant on taking minerals and stuff because they'll start to say, well, it didn't come from a doctor. So no, have been just starting to lean more towards, well, wait a second, we should maybe give this a try. So it's really good. We've been seeing a huge increase in that, and it's needed more than ever right now. So it's good.
Wonderful. Well, before we get into a couple of topics today, we're going to talk about the thyroid and inositol, one of our products here at Truehope Canada, and we're also going to talk about Empower Plus, our flagship micronutrient supplement, and thymus health. So we're going to get into the thymus gland. So we're going to get into that a little bit. But just as an introduction, why don't you just let us know? I mean, you've been on the show before, but please just reintroduce yourself. Who are you? What is it? What is it that you do?
Yeah, totally. So my name's Evan Dougherty, and I'm a herbalist here in Selkirk, Manitoba, just outside of Winnipeg. And I do, and we study and we train in an art called Shote, which is basically utilizing a bunch of different modalities to assess your system to figure out where the imbalance and why you feel the way you feel, where it's really coming from. Because there's a big dividance in the source versus the symptom, and we go down a rabbit hole very quickly to Google our symptoms and go, it must be this disease or it must be this that I'm having. And one of the best diagnosis tools ever is your body. It's a God-given gift that we can just utilize. So we look at your eyes and your tongue and teeth and read the structure of things just to kind of, they're all roadmaps to what's going on. So we utilize that. And then we do a form of applied kinesiology, which is basically muscle testing, which basically accesses the meridian system and the frequencies that every organ and gland resides with. And when there's an imbalance in the disturbance of the frequency of an organ or gland, it'll let us know for sure where the issue lies in your body and why you feel the way you do. So it's called Shote, and it's been around for about 40 plus years, and it's been going stronger and stronger because the modalities that we use have been around and proven for thousands and thousands of years. We've just kind of basically modernized it a little bit more and made it more effective and easier to teach people as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that introduction. That's very cool. So let's get straight into this. So we're gonna kick off first with inositol and the thyroid. And what we'll do is just as an introduction, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what the thyroid is and why we need to be taking care of it and being a lot more aware of where we are at with our current thyroid health?
100%. So the thyroid is very interesting because a lot of the times the first thing that a client will come or talk about when they come into my office is, I'm pretty sure I have a thyroid problem, but my doctor told me everything's fine. So then they'll start listing symptoms and they go, I explain, yes, well, the thyroid is a very complex gland. It's located right at the base of your throat here. And its main purpose is to produce the electrical impulse to every organ and gland. So it emits the frequency of everything. So if you have a brand new cell phone, you should be able to download some cool apps and you can do some amazing things with it. But if the battery charge is very minimal, it'll start to malfunction and glitch, even though it's a brand new phone and the hardware is fine. That's the goal of the thyroid. The thyroid is your organs and glands could be perfectly healthy, nothing wrong. But if it's not giving the right message or the electrical impulse to the organs and glands, you'll have all these symptoms of crazy rapid heart rate or blood pressure or upset stomach or hormonal thyroid imbalances because it feeds every organ and gland. But the thing about the thyroid that gets so complex is there's so many parts to it. So if the doctors do a blood test, which is usually on T3, T4, maybe T5, they'll say, nope, those numbers are good, so your thyroid's in good health. But that's kind of like walking around your car and saying, no, the three tires are full, but one's just flat, so it's fine. You can't drive the car. So there's so many different importances of the thyroid gland, but the main thing is for the energy. So that's why when there's a big thyroid imbalance, the first thing is lethargic. You can wake up good to go, half hour every day, just be dragging, no energy. Heart palpitations is another main symptom, and then weight fluctuations. You can do everything you want to gain weight properly, and you can do that in the next week, put 4 or 5 pounds on for no explanation. And then it also triggers a lot of anxiety symptoms as well too. But the thyroid is the most important gland to make sure that your electrical and your immune system like that is functioning in that sense.
Yeah, a hugely important part of our whole body. Obviously, most of our organs do multiple different things, and we can't get too drawn into one of them. And yeah, there's obviously a cascade of things that happen with a lot of these glands, a lot of these organs, that if there's an issue, even if it's small or minor, and it's just one of those little functions, then the kind of backdrop to that ends up being, issues along the way. And especially if those issues go unchecked for a long period of time, then we're talking about like serious biological malfunction, which we would probably call disease. So
exactly,
bringing inositol into this, which for a lot of people who might not know, inositol is just it's a B vitamin. It's a naturally sweet nutrient found in many fruits and vegetables that you probably consume on a daily basis, but not a lot of people really talk about inositol too much, I suppose. And the body uses it for structure, for secondary messenger molecules, and many different things to help the body communicate. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of different hormones and neurotransmitters like insulin and estrogen and testosterone, melatonin. Inositol is used in those biological functions to help the body communicate in all those like really beautiful, wonderful ways. So how have you seen inositol? And I've got a bottle here because I always have it very close by, especially in the busy work week. But how have you seen inositol support thyroid health within your practice?
Yeah, great question. So most people, when they hear that, are going to be talking about how they've done their research, they look this up, and the vitamin inositol there's no direct link anywhere on the internet to thyroid, but it helps the thyroid kind of by beating around the bush of the thyroid in a sense, because the thyroid's job, like I said before, is to make sure that the electrical impulses to every organ and gland is firing properly. So if the kidney doesn't have the right impulse from the thyroid, you're going to have those kidney symptoms of swelling in the feet, or clammy hands and feet, or frequent urination, things like that. So the reason the thyroid usually goes down is due to stress, and the stress is the number one thing that causes, and I stand by this wholeheartedly, every single disease in the body. It starts from an overbalance of the stress, no matter what. So we have different genetic predisposed cells that, for sure, like your father or your father before you will kind of follow the same suit of that. But a stress trigger will get you there quicker. And then also, if you don't have the stress, sometimes those genetic genes don't kick at all when those diseases don't form. So what I have found with inositol is all my clients that have been coming in and have been taking multiple thyroid supports from a doctor, iodine and other minerals that are directly linked to thyroid health to support it, they've still been kind of going on this up and down roller coaster of having good energy and clarity and focus and feeling better, but it just keeps coming back. And that's, again, to do with the stress. Stress is something that you can't get rid of. Unfortunately, we are alive in this world, and it surrounds us every single day, all day. But what we can do is support and stop the negative stress of that affecting our body in a negative way. And that's where the inositol came in. So once I was testing their system and how I explained that I do, it kept coming back to inositol. And I'm thinking, okay, well, usually there's no link to that in thyroid, but let's give it a whirl. So they would start taking the inositol, and within 2 weeks, this everything to do with supporting stress first. So sleeping better, which will help make the thyroid relax. The anxiety and panic attacks were next to none, and they noticed that their hormone, their cycles and stuff, how they would feel before a cycle would start to get better. So all the stress was relieved from the body, and in turn, the thyroid was fully supported and able to do its job because it wasn't fighting through all the stress that it was trying to basically delegate around. So then they would be coming back with their blood work and stuff after months on the inositol, and their thyroid level's good, and they're actually lowering the medicine from the thyroid gland just from adding the inositol in.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what a wonderful way of describing how that kind of like indirectly supports systematic stress, which, as you say, like, is kind of unavoidable at this point in our culture, and being able to support that very important gland of all the multiple functions that it does. That's awesome. So how a lot of people have probably never heard of inositol, especially not as a B vitamin. Even I spoke to nutritionists who couldn't really tell me what inositol was. But
Yeah.
can you maybe how do you introduce that to clients? Because I'm sure people who come in and see you, they've taken a step into taking their own health into their own hands, really, by going to see
Yeah.
a complementary practitioner. How do you introduce the actual product, and without being too techy and too geeky on it? Yeah, how do you do that?
Because if you go into the details of all this terminology, a disease name from a medical system is this long and hard to pronounce, and it means high acid. You know what I mean? Like, so you start talking big words, people understand it. So I always go through with brain support first. So I talk about inositol, and I say it's a B vitamin, but what it's actually used is it helps balance out as well other neurotransmitters in your brain. So when they come in with more anxiety, or if it's even with the thyroid imbalance and I want to introduce inositol, I will talk about how it's all to do with the electricity of the body. The body runs off electricity and impulses, and it doesn't matter if the brain or the heart is perfectly healthy. That communication through your central nervous system needs to be there in order to tell the organs and glands what to do and how to do it. And I found none other better than inositol. So I will talk about how basically what you're going to be doing is taking this B vitamin in a powder, mixing it. You could drink it once, twice a day like this. But what it's going to do is bring up your neurotransmitter, like the connection between the organs and glands, and then they're going to be able to do their job better. And then it takes the stress off the system, so the thyroid gland or the heart or the kidney or liver can function properly. So I always go about it more on this product here is going to help minimize the stress that your body's feeling, so you can actually live and your body can do what it needs to do and repair on its own naturally. So I don't get into too much of the concepts of, well, look at this, and from the kidney and liver it produces a little bit of this. Like, it's just, no, here's what it's going to do. And as soon as we start to mimic or lower the stress levels, that they feel better, they can understand even more, and then we can talk about it more. But I always go about stress and basically like we're plugging the wire back into the wall so you can actually charge. That's what inositol is doing.
Fabulous. Yeah, I think that's a really great explanation, and probably very understandable for a lot of people to recognize that, sure, everyone experiences stress. I have stress in different departments, but if I've got the ability to take something that's going to help my body deal with that stress, then it's able to allocate its resources to different areas of the body, especially areas where we might have some inflammation or some other issues, and that our body's going to be able to start healing those areas, because it's got some kind of extra time, extra space. It's got the ability to communicate a lot more effectively when taking this product on a consistent basis.
That's exactly what it is, because instead of targeting every ailment that you're feeling with even a nutrition, because I'm a herbalist, the thing is, take your amino acids, take your vitamins, of course, but just because they're all good doesn't mean you have to take them all the time. You're wasting your money and your time that way. So instead of saying, oh, I have a rash here, my head hurts, I have bowel issues all the time, instead of taking something specifically for that, it always comes down to too much stress in some area of your life and some reason it's coming in. So if we go after the source, not the symptom, and you take the inositol and take stress off the body, those other symptoms that you're dealing with, which aren't diseases, they're symptoms, will disappear, because every 7 years, right, we're different, a whole different body with different cells and everything. So the body's constantly healing and wants to heal, but if it's in a constant state of stress and fight or flight and those responses, it's not going to heal. So that's where the inositol came in to help the thyroid go, hey, finally the pressure's off.
The pressure's off. Yeah, I like that. That's good. Before we move over to Empower Plus and the thymus and the thymus gland, have you got anything else to kind of like add on into that inositol piece? I think you've explained that really, really well. And yeah, it's a very simple product that can do such amazing things for a wide variety of issues.
Yeah. So the reason I brought it into my clinic off the get-go was I started with the Empower, which we'll talk about, but then the inositol really caught my mind due to just my knowledge and learning and practice about how the brain works and the neurotransmitters. But what I have found so much with inositol is, if anybody comes in, women, first of all, with really unexplainable cycle imbalances. So there's been an influx that is outrageous of women who have a period almost constantly, like they'll have a couple days out of the month with a break of not having a cycle, or they have a cycle and then not again for 7 months. And then they go through all the tests, no one can explain it. So the inositol, again, because everything does trigger back to stresses, but it also is a B vitamin, which is great for hormones and stuff too, and it regulates that nervous system. I've had huge success with bringing women's cycles back into a normal balance. So if it was too heavy, it would become normal again. If it was they were dying of cramps, the cramps were gone, and it was more in the actual monthly schedule period that it should be. That is a huge one. Aside from people that just are literally on the brink of a nervous breakdown, like just shaking and everything in their body saying, you have to do something quicker. This is not going to be good for you. It takes them right out of it. Like, so really people that just have no other option and they don't feel like there's any support in anything for stress and anxiety, it's my go-to. But for women with anything to do with hormones and psych, it's been incredible for that.
So you've seen a wild influx of women coming in with massively irregular cycles.
It's become almost my number one thing that I deal with women now. And over the last, I would say about 4 months for sure. It is just, and yeah, it's
Why?
gone from.
You got any theories behind that? Like, what's going on there?
I don't know. I know. Again, we can. It goes back to obviously when they go on the inositol, that regulates your nervous system and the stress, and it's been helping that. So I think it's got more to do with just how people are literally so anxious and just driven by fear right now with certain things that their whole system is just basically saying, nope, we're off. Because you got to remember that's all driven by hormones, which is vitamins and minerals. So when you stress, you deplete them, and then this happens. But never before have I seen it in such powerful, like such strength ways of just like missing 7 months of nothing.
I've certainly heard pieces like kind of trickle through certain practitioners and doctors kind of online talking about this significant rise in menstrual issues, and obviously within women with their hormonal system, their endocrine system is massively more complicated than a man's is. So we obviously all take stress on in different ways, but without question, last couple of years has been, we've never experienced things like it and in a world like this right now. So it would make sense, unfortunately, that there'd be a lot of irregularities coming in within a complex system like the body.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, let's talk about Empower Plus and the thymus gland. So why don't you introduce the thymus gland to people, and talk about how you've been using Empower Plus specifically with this organ, because I'm sure you bring Empower Plus into your clients' lives for many other reasons other than just the thymus gland. But we were kind of talking by email before we got on the call here, and you've obviously seen something in your practice, just like you've seen this rise in menstrual issues. You've obviously seen patterns there. So I'd be interested to know like what you've observed and how you've seen that work within the clinic space.
Absolutely. So this is really exciting to me because this is a missing part, a huge missing part of how people can remain healthy and stay healthy and combat any type of virus or let's just say thing that the world throws at them. Let's just say that. And it's so important because just like you mentioned before, some doctors can't even explain what inositol is. There's very few doctors out there, and I know because I've asked, that don't even know what the thymus gland is. So let me give you a quick rundown here. So the thymus gland is a gland that's shaped, it basically sits right on top of the heart. Okay, so when you're born, the thymus gland is very, very big, almost like the size of a grapefruit. Okay, and the thymus's job is to basically, it's the only gland in your system that actually is your immune system. So it produces your white blood cells, your killer cells, the lymphocytes, everything that goes after into the bloodstream to see if there's a bacteria, a fungus, an infection, or any type of invader. And then it sends the appropriate cells response and antibodies to trigger and kill that virus or that host, pretty much, so to speak. So even common colds. That's why. So when you're a child, it's wide open, okay? And that's why a lot of children, they can fall down and like, oh, that would have put me in bed for 2 weeks, and they get back up with never an issue, or they can recover a lot stronger on things quickly because their immune system's up to par. But it was swollen like that, and doctors didn't know till not too long ago that that was the thymus gland swollen. So they were actually, a long time ago, you can look this up, they were just taking the thymus gland out of people when they would do x-rays on children, because they go, look at this swollen gland, this is horrible. And it's actually, so it starts off very big for a child because they have more immune system like that. As we age, this is what the thymus gland does. Once you hit about the age of 50, it shrivels down to about the size of a pea, sitting on top of your heart there. So this little tiny nodule almost looking gland. But it is still responsible for those exact same functions of your white blood cells, your lymphocytes, anything to clean and kill bacteria or, like I said, invader hosts and stuff in your system. So you only have a certain amount of those cells, and the white blood cells are really formulated in your bone marrow. And that's why when you're older, you'll hear, oh, there's no immune system, so we have to go get a bone marrow transplant, and they inject it back into your blood to help fight things off. So one of the key things about this is to keep your immune system functioning. Because remember, the thyroid works on the electrical, so the power. Without the power, the organ doesn't work, so it's very important. But when it comes to immune system function, so keeping viruses at bay and making sure that your body can function properly in that sense, it's nothing but the thymus gland. And the thymus gland is also part of the aging process. The smaller it goes, then the faster and rapidly you age as well too. So it's part of that because it's putting the right cells into the body. So the reason, there's very few things that actually can stimulate and bring the life back to a thymus gland. However, a few of those minerals at the right component amounts seem to be in Empower Plus. So there was a product a while back that was used for this, and I started looking at the ingredients and going, wait a second, this is Empower Plus. So we started doing an experiment on all the people that would come in with horrible immune systems. I'm talking, they could come into a building. If somebody had a sniffle, they would go home with a sniffle. Like, that's a horrible immune system. So, and then when you get older and the more elderly you become, obviously your immune system becomes compromised, so you want to take care of that. So I would start to give people the Empower Plus and suggest they take 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And the response of what happened with their thymus gland was absolutely incredible. So they would stop getting the sniffles, the infections. They could actually find that their energy came up, and they could even run and play with grandchildren, do more things like that. So, and all these things are not just spoken with me testing. It was actually like blood samples done by the doctors, so they can see the blood cells and the red blood cells, everything kind of come up to a balance by taking the Empower Plus. The key components of that is the boron that's in that Empower Plus. That's a wonderful, you need a small amount, but all the other minerals that are in there with it just complement it perfectly. But the thymus gland is 100%. There's nothing else that is exactly directly related to your immune system. And it's very hard to find something that actually stops the aging process of the thymus gland, but the Empower Plus product has proven itself to do that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's so important that we have minerals coming in the right chelated forms, and as you say, like in the right combinations, because we can talk about like osteoporosis and calcium, but if you don't have the other minerals present in the right forms, especially in a good quality supplement like Empower Plus, which goes through a 4-day process but before it's even in the capsule, to really make sure that those minerals are going to be bioavailable for the body to just uptake right away. They're going to be familiar to the body, so there's not going to be any reactions going on there, but they're working together like synergistically, because some people might comment on our ingredients list that we might not be using the best form of this vitamin or the best form of this mineral, but the product isn't about the individual ingredients. It's about how they work together synergistically in the body, because that's how your body's going to uptake them and utilize them, especially in very, very important glands that require very specific minerals in specific forms. So yeah, you've explained that really well, and I love the fact that you've seen that, you saw that as an opportunity, you've utilized it in your practice, and then you've seen the results. So I wonder, like, what age groups have you seen this work with? You mentioned people who have got like poor immune systems, people who get sick quite consistently. So what type of people have you seen that work with in the clinic? So
obviously what you just said there, the elderly is the biggest one. That would be the things that they could gauge off how quickly it was working with how they were feeling. So constant, almost like diarrhea-like symptoms because they were having chronic yeast infections all the time, basically because the thymus gland wasn't producing the right killer cells to get rid of candida and infections like that. Suffering with that all the time, rashes as well because the lymph is too congested and doesn't have the right lymphocytes to clean that. So those things in the elderly. So constant immune system compromises, things that you'd go to the walk-in clinic for all the time. They disappeared right away. That was the biggest thing in the elderly. However, without going into great detail, I've had a couple, not a lot, a couple young children with very rare genetic conditions that really affect the bones and the growth of the bones, where they start to eat themselves from the inside out, the bones, or they just grow too fast. And again, there's nothing that'll work on something like that aside for the right mineral component, which what I suggest with them is Empower Plus. And the thing that they will notice right away is the aches and pains, because there's technically no such thing as growing pains. Growing pains is an excuse that we tell ourselves when the body's missing calcium, magnesium. It hurts when the bones and tissues grow. So if you have growing pains or you have a child that's constantly all the time hurting, you give them calcium, magnesium, it'll stop within 5-10 minutes. So that's just any pain in the our body's way of telling us know that something's off, but it comes from minerals. So elderly, for those constant, bronchitis, constantly coughing, infections like that, the Empowered Plus was helping that. But for children with more rare autoimmune diseases, already the quality of life has improved by not being in so much pain. Whether or not those genetic conditions can actually be reversed and stuff like that, I'm a big believer of you give it the right stuff, the body can heal that. We haven't seen that confirmed yet, but how they feel is already improved. So that's huge.
How long have you been using Empower Plus and other products? Because you obviously, when you've noticed a pattern like menstrual cramps and the menstrual issues and inositol, and you've seen this immune issues, and you've used Empower Plus, you must have quite a lot of experience with the products to first recognize the pattern of condition and then kind of have a go-to product that you trust and that's going to work. So how long have you been using our products for, and what's your experience with them so far?
I think I've been aware of the company and Empower Plus for quite a few years, but in my own clinic and practice, I would say it's been on my shelf maybe only about 2 years. But the thing with this is how I assess somebody's system is why I've been able to skyrocket the success of what's been happening here. Because instead of talking to them and going, you know what, this might work, or let's try this, the type of muscle testing that we use with somebody's system, with the frequencies to see, the biggest thing that it can give you is what will work for them. So we narrowed down exactly what it is. So if they come in with a condition, I could basically test their system through the kinesiology and say, and find out that it's coming from a mineral deficiency. And then you go, okay, well, how well will this product work for them? How well will this product work for them? And then when I have those products like the Inositol and the Empower Plus, I can test on their system by basically a strengthening test, and it shows strong all the time for that product. So then I would use the Empower Plus, and then they would just come in. Usually I assess people every 3 months, but if there's a big serious condition like that, they'll come in once a month for sure, just to see how progress is going. And that's how we've been able to track it monthly to see how their symptoms and conditions have improved with that. But yeah, I don't even just minimize myself to things like a couple of people's products. We have a whole bunch of things, but Empower Plus has stood out among all those.
Yeah, we certainly find with Empower Plus that there are a lot of deficiencies in a lot of different people, right? So, but it can be very difficult, even if you do supplement and eat really well, to obviously keep a check on the many nutrients that we need on a kind of consistent basis. But with Empower Plus, we kind of tackle those more prevalent deficiencies. A lot of people are deficient in fatty acids and amino acids, but being able to take care of the minerals and the vitamins is very obviously very, very important. Is it common for herbalists to use supplements?
I think so. I hope so. Yeah. A lot of naturopaths and things like that will use more like homeopathic tinctures, or basically, because realistically, every medicine, I don't know if a lot of people know this, is really driven from like a fungus or a natural substance. It has to come from something natural for the body to actually latch onto it, right? Like Advil, white willow, and things like that. A lot of naturopaths use more. They are natural, but they also come from a more of a somewhat chemical component too. They work very similar with like the doctors like that, which is great. Sometimes they work wonderful. As a herbalist is more, yeah, because we with the plants ground up as supplements like that. But in those supplements or vitamins and stuff like Empower Plus is key, because you don't have to waste your time by taking a whole bunch of things for a while to get that amount. Like beta carotene. Can't I just eat carrots? Sure you can, but you'd have to eat bundles and bundles and bundles of carrots to get what it would take just to pop the beta carotene supplement.
What would you say to because I don't know many herbalists that use a lot of supplements. Obviously herbs is what the herbalists are trained in.
Yeah.
But as you were explaining there, obviously there are constituents within herbs, you know, that you're using, that you're activating for specific things, and there's not really much of a difference between that and you know creating a supplement, which again is like, you know, whether it's one nutrient or it's a combination of different things for a different ailment. But do you know, what would you say to a herbalist like who only uses herbs and like doesn't go towards using supplements as a complementary factor because of, I don't know, because of whatever reason?
I would go back to the basics of how the body heals, which is basically herbs. Like let's talk about like dandelion, milk thistle, red clover. All these things are really used to push heavy in organs and glands. So like clean organs and spleens, like kidneys. So it works more on the actual glands very well. But the supplements, like mineral components, supplements, is what the body needs on a cellular level, like the DNA of that. So if I have a kidney infection, I can take uva ursi, which is a herb, at high amounts, and it'll get rid of the infection. But if I have like if I'm missing, you know, or my cells are mutating too fast, or if there's some sort of component on the cellular level and how the cells communicate with the immune system, a herb's not going to reach that nearly as much or as fast as a supplement will. So supplements come in when the body needs to really heal and repair the body. So you can't neglect those at all, because the DNA strands, like our proteins that make us up as a human, the DNA is made up of minerals and amino acids and stuff like that. So herbs have a huge part in really helping the function of an organ and gland. But when it comes to the cellular level and the immune system to kick in stronger, you've got to use supplements as well like that. You have to go to minerals for sure.
Apart from the thymus gland, in your couple of years of using Empower Plus in your practice, what are the kind of the other more common conditions that, like, you know, you're sitting with one session and you're kind of obviously you're asking questions, you're being present, you're listening to what's going on, but obviously there's like, you know, lots of things going on in the back burner, right, in your mind, that like connecting all these dots, and you know, you're kind of DDXing here. So like what are the other more common conditions would you go to Empower Plus to support with?
So clearly the obvious one would be for mental depression, anxiety, and things like that is always the go-to. But the other thing with that is when it comes back to thyroid, the mineral components, see the same. Here's a great example of what I was saying before. The thyroid gland that regulates all the organs and glands with the electricity, like the channel, the conductors and neurons basically that go through your nervous system, that runs off of iodine. And there's herbs for that, like dulse and kelp and things like that stimulate the thyroid gland. However, the piece right in the center of your thyroid is called the parathyroid. And a lot of people will talk, the medical system will basically say it's not part of your thyroid, it's different, but it's called parathyroid. It's right in the middle of the thyroid. It is part of it, but its job is to specifically balance vitamins and minerals, which is hormones in the body. And as dulse and kelp, the herb, would work on the thyroid gland, things like boron and selenium, those types of minerals only work on the parathyroid. So Empower Plus comes into play a lot of times when people have hormonal issues or the parathyroid is very low. So they have that can lead to things like arthritic symptoms, because a lot of arthritic pains and joint inflammation comes from the lack of certain types of minerals. So you can be taking them, take your calcium, take your vitamin D, take everything. But if the parathyroid's not distributing that electrically properly, they're not going to absorb. You're going to be wasting your time as well. So the Empower Plus not only delivers the proper nutrients for that, it also helps stimulate the electrical impulse from the parathyroid, which then makes everything absorb. And certain types of like testosterone and things that get trapped into organs and glands and don't get delivered, the selenium and the boron and the other minerals in that combination help them kind of disperse again. So it also helps a man's prostate as well, would be another one. So the parathyroid, the prostate gland is another huge one, but again, depression as well.
You've obviously got a lot of science background in regards to your education and, probably continued education as well going forward once you've, once you're in your clinical practice and keeping up on obviously the latest research. And that obviously strongly validates the use of using Empower Plus because you know what's in it, you know how it works, and you know the condition and how that's going to support somebody. But, most people who come into your office won't have that background, won't have that research background either. So they're having to take the product, trust you, and experience what it's doing for them in their current condition. Does that make sense? Like how do people give you kind of feedback on how it's working? Because if they don't have that logical understanding of like what is in this product and how it's actually functioning, all they can go on is like how they feel and the changes that it's going to make, right? So what type of feedback do you get on that?
Yeah, and that's a great answer to your previous question too, is so basically when I'm talking to them in my office about that, I actually try to go out of my way to talk to people like I would talk to my 6-year-old son. You know what I mean? When it comes to health, like as basic as I can. So they go, great. I understand that. But really, with how I test the body, I will show to them on their system with the arm that this product will work for them. So right away, that gives them a bit of a confidence. Okay, well, my body responded in some sense to this product. And obviously, with what he's saying, I'm going to give this a shot. But where that comes from is herbs I have to see people every 3 months because they take that 3 months, that 3 to 6, sometimes a year to really get into the system to make this dramatic change in their health. But minerals, especially ones that work on a thyroid gland that is an everyday support for your system and to focus on the mental health, is a quick change. So usually I tell people you will notice something within 2 weeks by being on this product. There's no there's no way you won't, right? So right away they'll come in within their month or whatever follow-up if it's something that's a bit of more of a chronic issue, and they can tell right away. Because once you feel better mentally, the physical body responds to that. So basically it's how they feel with I just feel like I have a little bit more clarity in the day, or what just happened before I got here would have really angered me and I would have been to a fist fight. And I thought, not a big deal. Like, so it's more to do with how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis, but also what their partner would say. I have lots of people take like Empower Plus for like, say, a month. So it's more as well. But minerals, yeah, that's why the Empower Plus, the Inositol, we're not looking at 3 to 6 to a year time frame to make a difference. It's weeks, and you know it's a difference.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Like that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this interview, talking about inositol and its application with the thyroid, and talking about Empower Plus and the thymus gland, and then we're obviously touching on some other aspects of Empower Plus as well. So I really appreciate you going through that, and it's amazing that you're actually observing these things in your clinic space, and you obviously as a practitioner you get very excited about sharing that information with other people. So I really appreciate you coming on to talk about that. How can people connect with you if they want to email you or ask you questions?
Yeah, so we have a website which explains not only the art of how I test, but also talks about there's also a lot of written things that make it more understandable for people too, and that is show-tay.ca. So that's my website. And then on there, you will be able to find too. I also have an email. So if you have questions where you want to actually reach out to me with certain things, the email for that is my name. So it's evan@healthtrek.info. That's the email for the company to reach me directly. And that's the website. Those are the best ways to get a hold of us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Evan. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this episode of True Hope Cast. Really appreciate your time listening today. For any information about getting hold of Evan, and I'll put a few things in the show notes there so you can connect. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. It's very, very helpful. But that is it for this week on True Hope Cast. We'll see you next week.